Hey, what is going on, ROK Familia? It is your boy, BN, aka Mr. Kingdom Builder, and today we are back again to give you our part 3 in our Creating a Jumper Project series here for Rise of Kingdoms. Before we do get started and dive into all the goodness, make sure you guys sub, like, ring that notification bell, and of course, if you want to join and be a part of our conversation, you can hit up our Discord, which you can find in the pinned comment and description down below. All right, so what we're going to talk about right now is essentially how you would want, right, kind of give you some tips, some best practices, some kind of do's and don'ts, and hopefully just some good information, right? To help think outside the box on how you want to set up your Discord for your jump project, right? So we're going to kind of do a high level overview on areas to include and then kind of give you some pros and cons and thoughts on some of these topics. Now, first and foremost, right, let us talk about first, I'm going to actually show you a couple examples. So I just got done joining a couple Discords just a little while ago from the time I'm making this video. And we're just going to go through a few of them just to kind of walk you through some of the things I like, some things I would kind of caution against, and then I'm going to give you an example of just a very simplistic version, right, of something I have on my server that I've used. So let's first start off here with, we have Warrior Order, right? So you have kind of a welcome screen. Here you got roles. There is, and this is of course in a different language, right? We have announcements here. Looks like last one was on the 13th, but let's just take a look at the roles for a moment. So if we scroll to the top, you'll see that you have roles here for your different unit types, right? With the infantry, cav, archers. Now, I'm not really a big fan of kind of putting in the infantry types, and I say that because I think just informing players of what the benefits are of doing certain unit type focuses, along with, right, also figuring out what kind of marches, right, do they want to run? What kind of commander pairings do they want to run? I think giving them information on what good commander pairings are, specifically, right, if you're free to play, you know, some of those routes might be pretty standard, but you may also run into situations where whether you're free to play up to spending, right, you might find that certain commander comps or pairings are more ideal for a specific KVK, right? Maybe going into KVK 1, maybe for future KVKs. These are just things to consider. Why I think it's more appropriate to provide good information and quality material on why people would go for certain pairings, right? What pairings are optimal going into these certain situations, and then allow for players to kind of figure out what they want to do from there. Because keep in mind, when you are starting out with your account, even when you're doing your jump prep phase, you are predominantly going to be just doing nothing but building troops, right? You're not really going to be saying, well, I'm just going to build twice or 3 times as many of this troop as another. Maybe when troop training events come around, right, you might do some bulk troop training and then you're able to kind of focus on one tier over the next. But I can tell you from someone who's ran 4 jump projects, right, with 3 out of 4 of them being very successful going in to win their first KVK ones and one kind of breaking even, right, the idea when you go in, I've never told people ever to say, hey, you need to focus this troop type or you need to focus this. It's all about giving good information and letting people sift through that information and then make a decision for themselves, right? An informed decision. And so I think just kind of doing something like this can kind of give a false impression of, hey, you know, a bunch of people are going infantry. Maybe I should just go infantry to go with the masters, right? You don't know what you have to keep in mind, right? There's a lot of new players, and new players are very impressionable, right? Because they're going to latch on to the first person or group of people or first content creator or first piece of information they're reading or they're watching or they're hearing that sounds good. And then oftentimes some of those people will kind of run with it, right? They'll just keep soaking up, right? And downloading, right, additional information from that same sources. And so that's just why I think it's really important that we just provide good information first and foremost. So something like this, I just personally wouldn't include. When it comes to the spender topic, right, this is something I think is a big no-no. If you have ever been in a jumper project that has these things, and I will tell you, I used to do something like this in my projects. I now do not do that anymore because of just the apparent challenges and hurdles that it comes with, and really more so problems. And I'll explain a couple. So the first one is that there's no way to absolutely guarantee who is going to spend money, right? You're purely going off of people's, you know, word, right? They're the honor, so to speak. They're the integrity of their word, if you will. And what I have found is that we've done things like this. We've actually also done it in a more professional way, in my opinion, right, where we do it based on anonymous feedback. Because keep in mind, I can go on here and I can see, well, this guy named Rafik and Dark Weaver, right, are, you know, Moby Dick whales, so to speak, right? They're Bellinis, and they themselves are spending, you know, whatever it is, plus 1,000 euros. But there's no guarantee those people are going to do it. So we would do anonymous feedbacks via Google form where I was the only one who could see who was actually submitting what, but still you run into the same challenge. People can lie, right? They can submit a form and say that they're going to spend a certain amount, but they don't. Same thing here, right? You could have half of the people or more than half of the people here, or any number of people that are lying and saying that they're going to spend a certain amount, but they're not, right? And that kind of runs into the second challenge, is that because you have no way to vet and guarantee the information, you then run the risk of players that are, I mean, could arguably just be free to play, but they're saying they're going to spend, and they're doing that so they can try and get into an alliance of spenders, right? And so that can mislead it as well. Number three, some of the after effects of that could be, well, let's say that we had 50 people that signed up, but each alliance only ended up ever getting 2 to 3 spenders, right? But we had 50 people that recognized. That can cause problems for you down the road, where now you have leaders or officers or other members saying, well, hey, you know, what happened? Did whoever was in charge of splitting up spenders not do a good job? Did they just take them all? Why do we only have 2? And this other alliance has 3 or 4, right? So again, there's so many challenges that can come from that, which is why my belief really is just to randomly split people evenly between alliances and let the pieces fall where they may. And then you can always do tinkering when it comes to kind of like migration time. Or even if you just have new people that are coming in, right, after you land in Kingdom. So I just think it's just not worth the headache. And this is just something I don't do anymore. Now, we get to the next role here, which is, it looks like it kind of is going off of region or country. I actually kind of like this, where you can figure out maybe the native language, right? You can kind of, and this is, right, it does say language here. And I like this because I think it's really important to try and identify, right, what the languages are that the majority of your group speaks, so you can set up individual channels, right? As like world chat channels, maybe you want to use an auto translation bot and you want to set that up on the Discord so that way you can have, you know, this channel being auto translated for everything that's messaged in there. You can even do like synced channels if you want, where you'll have like one world chat, but then all the messages that are in there will also sync to other channels, but they'll do it in those languages. So really cool stuff that you can do there. I'm a big fan of language chats, and something that I definitely also need to use more of, but I think is a really good idea. Obviously, if that's what they do from this. Now, if we look at experience, right, for the role here, this is pretty common. You'll see a lot of jumper projects that are asking about experience, right? How long have you played? Now, I will say I'm 50-50 here. I don't entirely disregard this and think that it has no use. I think some of the value is dependent on what and how you're going about using the information. So if you do something like this, right, and an example of how you would utilize this information is you would then reach out to each of these individuals and you would say, well, hey, do you have any experience managing a department? Have you ever been an officer before? Have you been a leader before? Right now, you can also just have individual positions that you do those things for. But then at that point, it's kind of redundant. Like, it doesn't really matter how many people you have a part of your group that have experience or not, right? Because unless you're going to do something with that experience, right, whether it's, you know, see if they want to fill into a position, if they're going to go out and help people, right, that's where you're getting some, you know, actionable value off of doing something like this. Otherwise, it's just, you know, kind of another fluff role, so to speak. And then we get to another one here, which is, you know, react to what alliance you want to join. I'm not really a fan of this, and I would really advocate against it. And the reasons I'll give you is because, one, if you see something like this happen and you join a group, right, by default, the average player is probably going to go just with the masses, right? And it's pretty much what has already happened. That's why you don't see an even split here of all these people for the 3 alliances, right? You're kind of seeing this top-heavy situation happen here for Warrior of Sparta, where they have 29, then 8 and 6 for the remaining 2 alliances. So doing something like this, when you have someone join the group, majority of the time, they will think to themselves, well, do I want to go and be a part of an alliance right now that only has 5 people, or do I want to go somewhere that has 28 people, right? There's more social activity, there's more engagement. This alliance is probably going to be better prepped for when we jump. I mean, who knows what is going on in their mind? So personally, I wouldn't do this. I would just say, you know, try to divide them up equally, one by one, depending on the alliances that you have. And a lot of that is dependent on how heavy and how proficient you are in your recruiting, right, for your group. So that's just a few. Let's go ahead and take a look at another one here. And this is Imperial Knights. So this one, let me see if they have roles. So they do. So if we look at roles, right? Again, the spender thing, not a big fan of that. They have the whole unit thing, not really a fan of that. And let me see, time. So same thing. Right. One of the things I do like here is pick your time zone. So I actually like this. I would just do it a little bit of a different way. I would say, what is your average time that you can be online every day? Right? Maybe it's 0 to 2 UTC, maybe it's 2 to 4, and you use UTC time because that's the in-game time, right? And usually you'll see that somewhere on your in-game screen, and that is the same time for every single person that plays the game. That's why it's very easy just to use that time, and then you just have reactions based on here. That way you can kind of figure out, what time are people going to be online. You can actually use that information later down the road, eventually when KVKs come up. You can use it for potentially sieging objectives, right? Relic shrines, etc., passes, right? So these are just things that you can do if you want to invest early for something later down the road, months ahead of time, right? So I like the idea. I would just probably do this a little bit different. And then we kind of get to some other items. Actually, we'll come back here in a sec. Let's go ahead and we'll look here. Right, so this is roles, same thing, infantry. I like this where it kind of shows the continent that you're on. This is pretty cool. I actually kind of like this idea where maybe you can select a role based on the continent that you live in, or maybe just, or maybe the country, right, depending on how deep you want to go with the roles. But even if it's just the continent where you are, I actually think this is pretty cool. I don't know why he didn't include Antarctica, or they didn't include that. You don't know. Maybe some Eskimos are kicking it playing rock. But anyway, still really cool. I like this, that you can do that. I think it's just another example of kind of like diversifying your statistics within your group, and could always make nice pieces of information that you put out there. Then again, we got the spending. Not really a fan here. Definitely not a fan of like the gender roles, right? I understand it's optional, but it's just not something that I would personally do. And then you have your experience, right? This kind of goes into experience, right? And again, expert, advanced, new, right? But what do you categorize as that, right? What do you define as an advanced player to an expert, right? Providing some context here, or maybe some detail would help. All right, then we get to the last one here that we're going to look at, which is Ravens. And let me see if they have some polls. They do. So again, same thing, similar, right? Are you jumping with us? Yes, no. I actually like this. This is one thing I am a fan of, is kind of like a sign-off, so to speak, like which people are actually going to play. But the difference is that I wouldn't do it here on the actual poll. I would do this after people have got access to the jumper section, and then you've been running things for a while. I wouldn't do this right away, right? I would wait. Like if you're planning to jump a month out and you just start, I would do this maybe around 2 to 3 weeks in, right? Maybe you take a soft water temperature poll on how many people are interested, because that way they've had a chance to kind of see how you operate, how your group operates within your project. How are your announcements? Do you guys do meetings? How informative are you? How engaging are you? Right, these are things that I just would not necessarily do right away. Same thing with the whale wallet thing. I wouldn't do that. Alliances that we have here wouldn't do that. Now, let me go back. I just want to give a brief example, right? There are some things that you're going to find, and I'm just going to use this Imperial Knight one as an example. So there's things you're going to find, right, when it comes to guides, right? So here, you'll find anything like, free-to-play guides, pay-to-win guides, jumper guides, right? You'll find commander pairings, technology, right? Any guides that you can. I think these are obviously must pieces of information that you need in your project. So you should have some kind of a guide section. I would even go as far as saying, it's nice to have an events section, because there's so many different events that are in Rock. You have an events section, and you can either do it where you have a channel of every single event, kind of categorized in alphabetical order. You can have like maybe a couple channels where you kind of consolidate certain similar events, and then you just kind of have one channel that's like your table of contents. But I think having a channel for guides, having one for events, having one for like commander pairings, talent trees, those types of things, I think would be great, and is definitely a must to do. And you could pull a lot of resources from the official Rock Discord, from YouTube videos, from just Google Images, right? Just kind of, be creative and think outside the box. Now, lastly, what I'll do is I'll just kind of give you an example of, I'm a big fan of like simple is just better, right? I'm not really someone who's going to be super fancy. And again, nothing against for the people that want to, but I like to try and keep things a little more sleek. And so, for example, this is like my IK Jumper project category, but this easily could have just been renamed to Rock. Here, right, I think obviously you need to have an announce channel. You need to have just one chat channel, essentially. Now, you can have a questions channel if you want, right? But I think it's really important early on that you consolidate activity into 1 to 2 channels, preferably 1 to start, just so you can focus on showing publicly that you have good chat activity within your project, right? So sometimes just starting off with with just a general chat, and then again, if you want, the optional there is to do a questions. I think adding eventually, you'll see here like I have a sign off channel. This is something that we added on later. And some things here you'll see that we kind of kept it super simple. We just did select the region you are in or closest to. This was for time zone purposes, right? Kind of figuring like NA, Europe, Asia. And then we have like town hall availability. So I think doing town halls for your projects is an absolute must, right? As someone who's ran 7 projects, I cannot tell you how amazing it is when you can engage with people. And a lot of times players want to hear from you. They want to hear from the leads. They want to hear from the people that made the project. They want to know that there is a plan. And sometimes they want to know what they don't even know, right? Which is how organized is the project really? How much thought has gone into it? How much planning has gone into it? These are things that help players have more peace of mind, and it can also help them be more engaged and more motivated to contribute. So here I think it's important to do things, and you can see here, right, we have like 1 hour blocks here with the reactions that we did. We obviously could have had more. You can do these for 2 hour blocks. We do ours, we usually did ours on Tuesdays, and then eventually we started kind of doing weekly polls. Where we just found people that we just basically kind of did it the moment that we finished a town hall, and then we set it up for the next week, just saying, kind of trying to do it like on a weekly rotation, just because figuring some people's schedules might change week to week. So we wanted to try and be as accommodating as we could. And then we have like this expectation sign off. Right, and this essentially is just kind of covering some of the main highlighting points of the project. And then we did this, I think, about a week and a half before we actually jumped. Obviously, this is in another game, but you can see that, right, it's pretty organized. You have the highlight points here in bold. You have the check sign off here. And then we told people, right, that, obviously you need to sign off here and on some of these other areas, right, if you want for us to place you into an alliance, because we did it manually. So it provided another layer of oversight and another layer of kind of gating, if you will, so we could really try and find the people that actually wanted to be a part of the project. And then you have like a jump progress channel. I think this is cool. This could be like your jump hype progress channel, where people that are prepping your accounts are able to kind of post their status updates or their progress. How far ahead are they? Did they hit 100K, 200K, 250K? Did they hit a certain milestone, right? Did they finish all the caves or all the villages? Right, these are things that can be fun to talk about for some. Then you have your prep, right? Now your prep is pretty much, what are you doing, right? What are you, how are you doing 1 through, right? When you start off your account, what's the focus? What are you doing in the first kingdom? What are you going to do in your second final kingdom? I believe there's only 2 jumps now. So, these are things that I think are really important. And, what's interesting is that, and I just wanted to point this out. It's funny because I was looking at some of these servers. I'll just use this one as an example, right? And there's a jumper guide thing here, and I'm trying to see real quick. So you can even see here, right? Like if I look at the jumper guides, it's really interesting that like my jumper guide that I made is not actually included here, and I'm gonna give you guys an example here. So I made this jumper video, and oh god, I'm gonna have to try and find. I didn't think it was like this far down. Let me see here. I'm gonna have to actually type the whole thing in. Okay, here we go. So I made this one actually a while ago, and I just want to kind of show you an example here of what I'm talking about. So this was a video I did, right? Which is, what is this, about 1840, right? But you'll notice that, oh gosh, that's IK. Sorry, I thought it was rock. Oh gosh, hang on, where is it? All right, here it is, 2020. There we go. Let me get the right video up here. I was like, why does it look so weird? Now, unfortunately, I have this like sad movie maker banner on it because at the time I was trying to do some editing, and I just didn't actually think to kind of do it using something else. But the point here is that if you watch the video, what you will see, and I'm just going to mute it for a sec, right? You're actually going to see me going through everything. So I go through account creation of essentially what you're going to do on your first kingdom. I talk about what you'll do on your second kingdom, right? This was back when you could still do 2 jumps, then make it to your third and final kingdom. I tell you what you're going to min-max, what you're going to focus on. And it's really what I would consider to be a full actual walkthrough, right? It's the only one, to my knowledge at the moment, that is out there. But anyways, I just wanted to point out, I just thought it was interesting that, like, as I'm looking at some of these projects, right, I just noticed that something like that wasn't there, which I think is really important, right? If you're trying to give your players, hey, here's a visual aid, and I'm sure it probably needs to be updated to 2022 because it was back in 2020. But point is, I think just scouring for those types of resources that are out there is something that's great, right? Instead of kind of necessarily like just defaulting to certain types of resources, right? And sometimes it can just be maybe they just don't know that those exist. But I just wanted to point that out. And then eventually you kind of get to your plan. I think it's very important to have a channel where you list out what your plan is, right? What are your short-term, your long-term goals? How are you going to manage events? How are you going to manage expectations? How are you going to do merges? What's the prep going to look like KVK1? Who's going to rotate your temple to send out King's Mails, right? Who's going to be doing title giving? I mean, all of these things. How are you going to manage Zone 1, each province in Zone 1? How do you do Zone 2 in the same? How are you going to manage Zone 3? How many alliances are in there? I mean, these are very important questions and answers that players need to know before you actually go into, like before you start your jump project, before you actually start creating accounts in your first kingdom. This is very important information. If you want to minimize your margin of error, right, on things that come up, debates, discussions, conversations, right, voting, things like that, right, if you want to have things be seamless, right, and it's not to say like don't do those things, but to have these things be seamless. Remember, if you are creating a jump project, you need to be the one who has the vision. You need to be the one who is putting the information down so people can read it, and you are clarifying and very hopefully much so detailing out how these things are going to play out, right? What is the expectation? What's the standard? What are the goals? These are all very important things that every jumper project should really have. And I cannot tell you how many. I mean, even if we just look at like this big one here, right, which has a bunch. If I look at all of these, right, these are guides. If I look at boss, okay, this is main hall. Let me see here, videos, nothing. Okay, let me look at important, right? Let's see here, timer, tips, application, server booster. Okay, so here's a plan, right? So let's look, right? So it says we'll undergo. Right, these are group plans, kind of how you're going to do these things. Okay, cool. Let me see, applications. They have easiest application. Okay, this is just for an R4 position. How to read a little bit there. Right, there's some announcements that we're seeing here too. But the one thing that you don't see is a plan. Right, what is your plan? What are you actually doing in the kingdom? Right, that isn't just in your ad. Right, an ad that you're posting in like a recruit channel, right? If, as an example, right? Let me scroll here to try and find one, and I'm sure I'll be able to find one if I just scroll up a little bit. And you know what I love? I'll talk about this maybe towards the end, just to hammer home, right? So people can like see like, wow, boss has been like setting the standard for a really long time. But give me one moment here, and I just want to find this ad because I know it was here that I saw. And okay, here it is. So this ad here, you'll see for Imperium Knights, right? This format is pretty much my format that I created back in the day. You'll find quite a few jumpers that since I stopped doing projects in Rock, a lot of them do use the format, but they just copy paste everything. Unfortunately, I mean, again, it's important to be original. Because the people who know better, right, and who were around when I was doing projects just kind of know that it's almost like plagiarism at this point. But one of the things you'll see here, right, is like the kingdom structure, right, balanced alliances in Zone 3, right. So again, it's not. Don't get me wrong, it's not 100%, right. This has changed because ours was never 2. But you'll see here like evenly distributing rally leaders. Fixed and FFA MMGs, right? Educating the kingdom through informative king and alliance mails, running feedback rounds, and kingdom to connect in here, right? Again, all of the majority of what you're seeing here, splitting spenders and players, like a lot of this stuff is a template that I came up with back in the day, and I'll actually, again, just to kind of show you, we'll do from, and that's why I keep forgetting I have to get out of developer mode. So let me see here. 1822. Oh gosh, no, that's not it. God, let me see. Just type my name in. Interesting. Why isn't it showing here? Mentions. I really want to do from user. I don't know. Notification settings. This is like really weird. Wow. I've never run into this where I can't type my name in. Okay, this is what we're going to do. Let's make it easier. Watch, so we'll do this. Okay, now we're going to do old. And this, okay, so here, prime example, right? So I was doing this back in 2020, right? This is just an example, right? You'll see here from, this is one of the projects I was doing for 2100s. And you can see here, like what we bring, right? Difference here is what do we bring, right? You can see professional discourse structure, right? Experience in building, right? You'll see, again, copy paste, right? They just did a little italicize here. You can see kingdom structure we hope to build, kingdom structure, little changes, right? Doesn't include everything. You can see here fighters, rally leaders, post LT capture, right? So again, a lot of these ads you're seeing that are, pretty much copy paste with very minor adjustments. But the difference is that when you go into the discords, there's just not a lot of follow through, if not almost ever. And I think that's the important part that I'm talking about when you have to really provide what your plan is, right? When you go into as just an example on my plan, you see here's some short-term goals, here's some long-term goals, right? That just dive more into specifics. Here's specifics on how we're going to manage events. Here's specifics on a kingdom overview hierarchy, how we do discussions. Again, right? It gives you more than what the ad is giving you, and that's very important. The next thing here is jump positions. I think having positions very detailed. Like, look, you can see how I have my positions, and then here's like the biggest jump group that's currently going on right now, and we can look at how they do like their positions as applications, right? It just shows you, and it's not necessarily to highlight this group as saying like, oh my God, it's so bad, or any of the other groups that we've shown, but I'm really just trying to provide a comparison here for the standard level of how you could categorize some groups as being just more professional than others, right? Maybe some just might come across as like amateurish and the kind of effort and the time they take and what they're putting in, how they're wording things, right? It's just very important to notice that these are just improvements that groups can make. And so again, using some points of reference to kind of show you what some of the comparatives are, obviously is a great thing to do. And it's important for me to kind of show those so you can see what some of those differences. And then again, right, you'll see here, right, we have like video resources, right, day in the life that we even provide. Like, so if you want to be an R6, right, I've made videos on, hey, here's a day in the life of an R6. Here's what it looks like, right? You want to work on managing an alliance. Here's what it looks like. Right, I even have a video here for officers. I just didn't include this one. But then we have like recruiter. Do you want to be a part of ICE department that does intelligence gathering? Do you want to do diplomacy? Here's responsibilities. Here's the application to fill out. Right? We tell people when you're going to get back. I mean, you can just see that there is a different level of standard that, right, certain projects can be. And then you finally get to like a project FAQ. And an FAQ I think is really important because if you ever just notice that people are asking the same questions, bam, you throw it right here. So it really helps out a lot. And then the last thing I think I mentioned is like having a town hall. I think I briefly mentioned about that, but I think having a town hall page and then you just posting when those are going to happen, using something like a live countdown bot is really good. So you can help with that. And you can try running those based on the times that people react to and when they're available during the week. And it allows for you just to get the most amount of attendance per week, right, on the day that you do choose along with the time. So with that being said, I think that probably is it. I think we just covered a lot. I hope you guys enjoyed this video in our part 3, right, how to create a successful jumper series. And of course, if you have any questions, you're more than welcome to hit me up on Discord. You can ask in the comments down below. If you want clarification on anything I touched on, please feel free. I'm always checking in to read the comments as often and as much as I can. That is it, of course, from me. And until next time, we'll catch y'all later.